I chose to do my research on the effects of the Latino vote, and more importantly, narrowed it down to the importance of the Latino vote in the 2016 presidential election. I originally became interested in this due to President-elect Trump's often anti-Latino rhetoric and talk of building the wall across Mexico. It's also an important topic because the number of immigrants in the United States is growing, specifically the number of Latino immigrants in the United States. In 2010, the census declared the Latino population to be 16% of the nation's population and roughly 50.5 million people. This is an increase of 43% over the last 10 years. While many immigrants do come to the United States legally, there has been an influx in illegal immigrants from Mexico and Latin American countries. While these people, or this group of people, cannot vote, they have impacts on the way other peoples vote, including members of the agriculture industry or just members of other groups that tend to live in high-density Latino population areas. Additionally, a lot of these immigrants from Latin American countries do not speak English. This makes it difficult for them to be actually involved in the electoral process. When looking at the existing literature, a lot of common themes arise. Many scholars agree that the way in which Latinos have immigrated to the United States has been a consistent wave rather than a sporadic trend. This has created a situation where Latinos have a better chance of assimilating into American culture and in the end having a large impact on the electoral process. Additionally, this has created a situation where some areas have become very densely populated by Latinos. Thinking of certain states, battleground states like Florida, Nevada, and Arizona, each have a roughly 20% Latino population. Some counties like Miami-Dade County, it's almost completely Latino population. Past research shows us that as far as the electoral process goes, Latino and Hispanics are much more likely to vote for Democrats over Republicans. On average, the ratio is 2-to-1 in favor of Democrats to Republicans. Although this has been the theme over the past, it's argued by many, including De La Garza and Cortina, that this trend might change in the near future. Although they vote Democrat, it's argued that much of Latinos agree with Republican principles. When looking at Latinos' ideas and feelings towards Republican candidates, Howley found that Latinos are no more likely to vote for Republican regardless of his or her record on immigration. Really, the only impact that a weak immigration record can have for Republican is for them to lose votes from other groups. As stated earlier, a lot of these immigrants are legal, but in addition, there's a great amount of illegal immigrants that have come from Latin American Mexican countries. Passel and Cohn state that there are around 11.2 million illegal immigrants in the United States, and roughly 81% of these immigrants are coming from Mexico or other Latin American countries. In some states, like Alabama, Arizona, and Georgia, up to 40% of foreign-born residents are illegal. And when looking at the country as a whole, we see the United States had roughly 40 million foreign-born residents in 2010, and 30% of those were illegally present. Many of these illegal immigrants seek and end up finding employment in the agricultural industry. According to the National Agricultural Workers Survey, more than 78% of farm workers are foreign-born, and 71% of those come from Mexico. In some states like California, up to 25% of the agricultural workforce is illegal. Because of the impact that Latinos and other illegal immigrants have had on the agricultural industry, farmers and others have started to take notice as far as policy and other political moves that can affect Latinos. The only way to ensure that Latinos will have a large impact on the 2016 presidential election, or any election in general, is that voters will turn out in large amounts. Voter turnout and mobilization is argued to be by far the most important factor for Hispanic and Latino vote. On average, this group turns out at a lower rate than any other group in the country. In the past, candidates have made concerted efforts to secure the Latino vote and ensure that they mobilize in large amounts. In the 2012 election, President Obama made concerted efforts to gain a Latino vote. While Latino vote is only 16% of the nation's population, if it turns out in large numbers together, a large impact can be had. Another situation that causes Latinos to turn out in large amounts is when anti-immigration policy is implemented. This often leads to an increase in Latino voter turnout, which in turn will generate a greater influence for that group in the election. There are also cases or situations that can cause Latinos to not turn out in high numbers. As mentioned before, many Latino and Mexican immigrants do not speak English. This makes it difficult for them to really understand the voting process and also get registered to vote. One last common theme found throughout the literature is the increase in Latino immigration will not only affect the Latino vote and its impact, but it can also impact the voters of other groups, especially in areas of high Latino population. It has been shown that white people and other groups of people who have negative views on immigration will be much less likely to vote for Democrat candidates. The theory I developed for this research is as follows. The influx in Latino immigration has caused voting patterns to shift in favor of the Democratic Party. I built this hypothesis mainly based on past research and election results. In 2008 election, 67% of Latinos voted for the Democratic candidate, whereas 31% voted for the Republican candidate. In 2012, 71% of Latinos voted for the Democratic candidate, while 27% voted for the Republican candidate. The gap between Democrat and Republican voting between Latinos has grown, as has the influx in Latino immigrants. With the number of immigrants increasing, I expect the gap between Democrat and Republican percentages to grow in the future among Latino voters. "52% of registered Latino voters are located in states like California, New York, and Texas, all considered non-battleground states in the presidential elections. However, the Latino population is prominent in 3 of the key battleground states in the 2016 election. Latinos carry a lot of weight in Arizona, Florida, and Nevada, where they make up 22%, 18%, and 17% of the total population, respectively. When looking at the impact that Latinos can have on this election, it's important to study these battleground states where Latinos actually carry a lot of weight. By doing a case study of both Arizona and Florida, we can look at how Latinos voted and how the impact they had on the overall election. The first case looked at was Arizona. Arizona is a key battleground state that has a large Latino population. In the 2016 presidential election, Republican candidate Donald Trump ended up winning Arizona and the state's 11 electoral votes. Turnout was actually extremely high in Arizona as compared to previous years. In 2016, there were 790,000 registered Latino voters in Arizona, as opposed to only 517,000 in 2012. Additionally, early voting, Arizona saw the biggest surge of Latino participation than any other state. The second state looked at is Florida. Florida was maybe the most important state in this year's election, as in many years, and also carries a large Latino population. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won 278,000 more votes in Florida than President Obama in 2012, yet she still lost the state. Reasons for this include the 260,000 registered Republican Cuban American voters in Miami-Dade County. Additionally, newly immigrated Puerto Ricans could have aided the Republican Party by casting their votes in hopes of a stronger economy and more jobs for them and their families. Upon completing the case studies, we can make a couple conclusions about the results. While Latino voters did turn out at a higher rate than they ever have before, it appears their impact on the election was slim, or at least not in the direction that many had predicted. The main reason for this is the gap between Republican and Democratic votes cast by Latinos actually got closer from previous years. Additionally, despite his anti-immigration rhetoric, Republican candidate Donald Trump received a greater percentage of the Latino vote than previous candidates John McCain and Mitt Romney. A lot of scholars believe that this is due to the fact that Latino voters are not single-issue voters like the media and a lot of members of the Democratic Party have often made them out to be. In fact, studies have shown that the economy and jobs are most important to the large amount of Latino voters. In conclusion, while Latinos do still favor the Democratic Party on average over the Republican Party, the number of Latinos voting Republican has increased dramatically in recent years, especially in the most recent 2016 presidential election. Reasons for this include problems with the current Democratic administration, the economy, and the way the Democratic Party seemed to make immigration the only issue of importance to Latino voters.